I'm the FanFiction Critic, and this is what you do with a BA in English. Oh, Disney. Disney has given us some truly magical moments over the years, and they have taught us a very, very valuable and meaningful lesson about karma. You see, in the Disney universe, the villains are always the coolest characters, but they always die. Horribly and screaming in agony. That's why I've compiled a list of the top 11 nastiest Disney villain deaths. Why top 11? I like a nice prime number, that's why. So without further ado, the top 11 nastiest, ickiest, scariest, most disgusting Disney villain deaths ever to grace the silver screen.
Number 11. Anyone who died from falling. The villains shown are all tied because they all died pretty much the same way, by falling from a great height. They all got knocked off of clocks or cliffs or other things that are really high up, and then they fell screaming and died off camera. And because they died off camera, their deaths are all a bit ambiguous. Did they die before they hit the ground? What did they land on? Did they land on like spikes or rocks or a river? Did they feel any pain? Was their death instant, or did they just sort of bleed out slowly while the hero and heroine shared a magical kiss and sang a song? Well, either way, it's a rotten way to go. Number 10. Frollo, from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Like the folks in number 11, Frollo falls to his death. But his death is a bit spookier. The gargoyle-shaped rain spout he's standing on breaks and winds up on top of him as he falls. Then the gargoyle comes to life and snarls at him, further cementing his madness and just scaring the heck out of him. Although we don't see Frollo land, we can only assume that the gargoyle crushed his spine, and that it went off and sang a song with Jason Alexander afterwards. Number 9. Clayton from Tarzan. The scary thing about Clayton's death is that we actually sort of see it. He's up in the trees, tangled in vines, and he just starts cutting them. The only vine he doesn't cut is the one around his neck. So instead of falling and dying off camera like the people in number 11, he actually winds up getting hanged. The good folks at Disney took it a step further by showing us the silhouette of Clayton's corpse hanging there, moving ever so slightly in the wind, while all the innocent gorillas looked on, with fear in their innocent gorilla eyes. Number 8. Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty. I'm not a huge fan of this movie, but I will admit that Maleficent is a badass. She has all of these great magic powers, and her sidekick is a raven named Diablo, and she can turn into a gigantic dragon. And then what happens to her? She gets killed by Prince Gary's stew here after he throws a sword at her and it impales her. I guess those dragon scales weren't as effective as we all thought they would be. Number 7. Ursula from The Little Mermaid. Ursula is a lot like Maleficent. She has awesome magical powers, and she grows to be about 100 times her normal size for the climactic fight scene. And like Maleficent, she dies when Prince Gary Stew impales her with a gigantic pirate ship that was conveniently lying on the ocean floor. In addition to being stabbed through and through by a pirate ship, Ursula is also struck by lightning before she goes under, and when you think about how well water conducts electricity, her death was very painful, and it's a miracle that no one else died. Although, on the plus side, they did get a lifetime supply of fried calamari out of the deal. Number 6. Shan Yu from Mulan. Question to all the macho men who watch me talk. What's worse than having your ass handed to you by a girl? Having your ass handed to you by a girl and then exploding. Mulan defeats Shan Yu by trapping him on the roof and then shooting the mother of all fireworks at him. Not only does this rip him to shreds, but it provides a very beautiful display for the royalty living in the palace. Although, you know that just off camera, Shan Yu's innards were raining down upon the poor peasants. Number 5. Dr. Facilier from The Princess and the Frog. I hesitate to put Dr. Facilier on this list simply because it's unclear as to whether or not he actually dies. True, his shadow minions turn on him and taunt him as they drag him kicking and screaming into the pits of what I can only assume is hell, but we don't really know if he's actually dead. He could still be alive down there. In hell. Being tortured. For all of eternity. Number 4. Sykes from Oliver and Company. Most people forget about Oliver and Company. It was a decent enough film, but it was overshadowed by the rest of the Disney Renaissance, and since it lacked princesses, it's sort of been forgotten. which is a shame because its villain's death is especially gruesome. Vicious loan shark Bill Sykes decides that it would be a good idea to chase after the main characters. He then decides that it would be a good idea to follow them into the subway. Fagin's scooter is able to avoid the oncoming train, but Sykes and his Rolls Royce aren't so lucky, and we're all treated to the terrified look in his eyes before he's run down by the shuffling madness that is the New York City subway system. Number 3. Syndrome from The Incredibles. The Incredibles is probably the greatest superhero film ever made, and this is largely due to the fact that its heroes were practical costumes. Yes, Superman, your cape looks fabulous, but aren't you worried that it'll get caught in an airplane engine? Maybe Superman can survive something like that, but Syndrome unfortunately could not. He was sucked screaming into the airplane's whirring engine and was sliced to ribbons. But at least his final moments of sheer and unadulterated agony were cut short when the plane exploded. Number 2. Scar from The Lion King. Like Dr. Facilier, Scar's minions turn on him, but unlike the good doctor, Scar's minions are hyenas and not shadow creatures. Fun fact about hyenas, they're not hunters, they're scavengers, and sometimes they don't get to the half-digested gazelle carcass until most of the meat is gone. But that's okay, hyenas can eat bone marrow because their jaws are strong enough to crush bones. I wonder how Scar's bone marrow tasted. Number 1. Oogie Boogie from The Nightmare Before Christmas. This is probably the only Disney death that is actually captured on camera. The cameraman just sat there and videotaped every single second of Oogie Boogie's gruesome death. And now, I'm going to talk about it. Jack Skellington basically defeats Oogie Boogie by ripping off the burlap sack he wears, which, for lack of a better analogy, is like his skin. That's right, Oogie Boogie is skinned alive, and all of his innards fall into a vat of some sort of horrible boiling liquid. And then, the very last bug, the one remaining fragment of Oogie Boogie's consciousness, is squished by Santa Claus. Santa Claus ultimately winds up killing the Boogeyman, after he's been skinned alive by the King of Halloween, but you get the picture. Thank you, Santa, for killing the Boogeyman.
Well, those are my top 11 nastiest Disney villain deaths. But the fun's not over yet. No. I've got some runners-up. You see, these were the villains who didn't die, but who still got what was coming to them. Sometimes it's better if the villain doesn't die, 'cause then he gets to suffer. So without further ado, my top 3 runners-up.
Number 3. Captain Hook from Peter Pan. Hook was one of those Disney villains who's too funny to actually be truly menacing. True, he does have a few moments where he's kind of intimidating, but for most of the movie he's either throwing a temper tantrum or pissing his pants because he's scared of the crocodile. I actually really like the crocodile in Disney's version of Peter Pan because it's almost one of the protagonists. And at the end of the film, it gets to do what it loves best, which is chase Captain Hook all over creation while Smee bumbles around like a moron. Number 2. Sid from Toy Story. A sociopath in the making, Sid got his kicks out of mutilating toys, and probably would have graduated to small animals if not for Woody and Buzz. I mean, seriously, if not for a plastic cowboy and a toy space ranger, we would have a Disney serial killer on our hands. I, for one, really liked the way the toys got their revenge on Sid, but I was kind of hoping that he'd fully realize the error of his ways and repair them. Although, I guess I can enjoy his newfound crippling fear of dollies, too. Number 1. Jafar from Aladdin. Upon realizing that he can't defeat such a powerful sorcerer without using his brain, Aladdin manages to trick Jafar into wishing to become a genie. Jafar doesn't realize until it's too late that being a genie will mean being trapped inside of a magic lamp with Gilbert Gottfried for all of eternity. That's right, Gilbert Gottfried. For all of eternity. The horror. Oh God, the horror.
So there you have it, my top 11 nastiest Disney villain deaths and the top 3 runners-up. Happy nightmares, everybody, and creature feature, play me out.
One by one we write the dust, keep the buck and begin to rust. Give up the ghost when your numbers so we all